Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Sustainable Stace. I'm here with our dog Soda Pop and we're in the blueberry patch and we're going to talk about all the things you need to know about to guarantee great success in spring with your blueberries when the flowers come out and the bees start buzzing. We're going to talk about spacing the plants, providing them the best nourishment, irrigation, adjusting soil pH, looking at the nutrition that's in the soil, and very importantly, how to prune so that you're guaranteed the most possible fruit off of each bush. Stay tuned, learn how.
I'm Stace. For me, healthy food and sustainability are totally connected. You can grow it yourself. Nature is generous.
Okay guys, so we're in the blueberry patch and we're going to talk just getting going. If you've just purchased blueberry plants, they're probably in a 1-gallon container. And so it's kind of like an ice cream pail size container and you're going to want to put them in the ground. First thing you need to make sure of is that the area where you're planting is elevated, because especially if you come into rainy season, you don't want your blueberries having wet roots through the dormant season of the year. That's very hard on them. They'll get stressed and they may die. You want an elevated area, so you want to build it up. It's helpful to have a nice big hole that's bigger than the pot you're putting it into, so that there's lots of room for the roots to grow out. Usually if you want to double or triple the size of the hole over the container you're getting. Now I've got 50 plants, 2 rows, 25 and 25. These guys are a little more mature. Ones over on my left are a little smaller. Spacing. You got to think about the future, right? So you want full sun, because these are perennials. They're going to stay here for hopefully 20, 30 years. Maybe your kids or your grandkids will enjoy the fruit decades after what you planted. So think ahead that you got lots of sun, good drainage, open space, and I think a good idea is a nice arm length like this, which is 4 feet. I've measured 4 feet root to root for each plant. I always step over the soil, not on the soil, so that the roots can grow between, and then this is the area that gets special. Now, middle of winter, this looks kind of nasty, right? No weeding required. Now, first of all, I'm going to show you what's under here that you can't see perhaps, and that's an irrigation line. Now, this is drip irrigation. I'm a big believer in it. Every 1 foot or 30 centimeters, there's a drip. And so when I turn on the hose for irrigating this row about once every 2 weeks in summer when it's hot, it puts a drip out every foot. So all along here you've got blueberry roots, and all along here you've got water going down to the roots, no evaporation. And you'll see that I've got coffee sacks. Now this is over a year since I've been in this patch working on anything with soil, pH, nutrition, spacing, because this was all done a few years ago. Now here's what I do in winter, and this is key, and it's a really simple way to deal with nourishment, caring for the roots when it's coldest in winter so they're insulated, and addressing pH all at once. The key is sawdust, and specifically not any sawdust, something like fir. Douglas fir is the best. If you don't have access to fir, you want to look around and find out where you can get. This is from a friend's chicken coop, so I'm not just mulching, which is going to control the weeds and keep in the moisture. I'm adjusting pH with the fir, and with the chicken manure in there, I'm nourishing as well. So it's well-rotted chicken manure. I usually do about 2 shovelfuls into each of the 4-foot spaces, so 1 shovelful for every 2 feet. So I get that right in, not right on the root ball, but almost up to it. Now that's totally covering the irrigation drip line, right? So when I turn on water in the spring and I've confirmed that the water's flowing, it stays under there, and the roots are getting all the moisture and the weeds are getting nuked. See, I'm just covering these weeds. I'm not going to pull them, there's no need to. They're almost dormant right now in the middle of winter, so that looks after that. I cover that chicken manure sawdust, it mounds up the bed, and now here's the beauty finish. I just pushed this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. Coffee sacks, if you don't have them, feed sacks or cardboard. You get some of these bad boys that are organic fiber, and you go in between your blueberries, and now I've created a mound that's holding in all the sawdust, the moisture, and completely disabling the weeds from having future or a life. I am just totally setting up the blueberries for success, and with a double sack cover like that, that's going to go a whole year with no weeds getting through. So then when I've got an area like this all covered up, I've now addressed moisture control, I've addressed weed control, I've totally decreased the amount of moisture I'm going to need to put on these plants because they've got all their moisture held in by the coffee sacks. And all I'm going to do in a couple months is test the pH. I'm going to be in the middle of winter. Right now I'm in late December. I'm going to wait till about February. When I'm in February, I'll take a soil test, and that's going to be another video on testing pH, and we're going to check the pH of the soil because blueberries are super unique. They're not like carrots or cabbage or tomato. They want a different soil pH. Now, neutral on soil is 6.5 to 7, and lots of veggies do great at 6.5-ish. Blueberries don't. That's like a death zone for them. They're going to go into crash and burn mode. Blueberries want like 4, 4.5 to 5, 5.5, and that's the sweet spot. So when you go above 7 or neutral, that's called alkali. When you go below 6.5, 7, that's called acidic. They like acidic soil. Well, fir shavings is like taking a big shredded chunk of forest and putting the forest, which is very acidic, right around the roots. So I've acidified the soil, I've lowered the pH by just putting fir shavings on. But if it's not enough, I'll check and do a soil pH test later on in the winter, and then I'll add a bit of sulfur if I have to, because sulfur will really change the pH and lower it further. And keep in mind, you don't snap your fingers presto and create an instant change that's long-term for the soil pH. It takes a few months. So you got to do the right things at the right time so that your pH is adjusted, so when the flowers start to come out on these plants and they start to form blossoms and fruit, they're just banging, like they're loving what's going on because the pH is just right. You got that? Isn't that beautiful? Now we're going to look at pruning. Okay guys, so we're almost done. I'm just going to recap a few things we've done. You find a new plant, it's probably in a 1-gallon pot. You want to dig a much bigger hole than the pot and have it in an elevated location with full sun. Put in lots of loose material like compost and peat when you plant the blueberry, so it's going to have a low pH from the start, lots of nourishment, lots of room for the roots to grow. Elevated, good drainage, something like 4-foot spacing. If at all possible, drip irrigation. We've talked about controlling pH in the winter by having fir shavings or some type of acidic forest shavings that gets on there. Keeps out the weeds without having to do any weeding, suppresses the moisture. It's a beautiful thing. Now we're into pruning, and that's the final thing I want to show you before we're done this video. There's real obvious difference between what needs to go and what needs to stay, and it's the color of the branches. The ones that are really alive are very bright red, and the best, most reddest branches on this bush are right in the middle. You're supposed to prune every year. I haven't pruned this one for a couple years, and you need to take 20–30% of the wood off. I want to let one like this really shine, and I got to get rid of a lot of the dead brownish stuff around it. And here's the heartbreaker when you're pruning blueberries, because it's tough to see something that's kind of alive and kind of dead. That needs to go. So I got to be a bit ruthless here. This is a good example of a really dead branch back here. And when I'm doing it, I've got to think about what my end game is. And my end game is, this is a sunlight container. My sun comes from my left, your right. And I want this to catch as much sun as possible and for airflow to come through as well, so that I prune it so that it is designed to have airflow and sunlight. This big branch is blocking a lot of sun and it's mostly dead. On the back, I've got another branch that's kind of similar. We're going to take him out. We're going to start creating space for this middle branch that's really vigorous and alive. And in the process, we're going to be setting it up for success. It's amazing how much of good gardening, especially with fruit, happens in the off season. Because if you do this right in the off season, then what you're going to find is in season, you're just enjoying the fruit of your labors, right? You're harvesting the good stuff. Now in the back, we've got another couple branches that aren't looking so good, so I'm going to take them off. And with them out of the way, we're rid of most of our disease chances in this plant, and we've got a lot more opportunity for the stuff that's truly alive to grow and to flourish. And that looks a lot different than when we started, doesn't it? Just take a few little nubs off, and that's a pruned blueberry. I'm going to take this off too. There. Voila. That's not too hard, right? You can't really get it wrong. You just might under prune at first when you're a little hesitant, but don't be afraid. This is going to do way better and have way bigger pieces of fruit, because now it's going to have all its energy going to the key canes that are coming up. Go for it. You can do it. Blueberries. That's a wrap, guys. It's pretty simple, isn't it? Just got to know the steps, what to do, when to do it. It's kind of amazing in December, like I am right now doing this video, and my bees are actually poking in and out of the hive a little bit because the sun has just hit the front. I'm just going to review for you quickly what we've covered, just so you got it all. 4-foot spacing on raised or elevated planting spots, hopefully full sun and good drainage. pH needs to be in the 4.5 to 5.5 zone. We've shown you how to control that with fir shavings, maybe some rotted manure going in with them at the same time. Check your pH in February or so. If you can't get it right with fir shavings, then you might have to add a little bit of sulfur. That'll be another video on adjusting your pH. Drip irrigation underneath the sawdust in the sack so that all your moisture and your weeds are held in. And then prune the brown dead stuff off and leave the red vigorous stuff off. Take 20 to 30% of your wood off each season when you prune. You're golden. Wait for that spring flowering. The bees are going to be buzzing all over it, and some beautiful fruit, in our case in June and July, to harvest off the bushes. Enjoy. It's going to be a good day when you have fresh blueberries in spring. Hey guys, if you've been watching this on YouTube, thank you very much. Just want to note to you that in your bottom right hand corner, way down there, there's a subscribe button. And if you can push that subscribe button, then regularly when we post new video resources, you'll get an email in your inbox saying, hey, Sustainable Stace has a new resource for you. Then you'll know when it's coming all the time, whether it's bees or honey or fruit or soil or compost or seeds or whatever it is that we're working on equipping people to be hopeful, helpful, and healthy about. Thanks for tuning in, and I just want to as well let you know that in the top right hand corner up at sustainablestace.com you can find a blog post, video, post to Instagram, and different things like that. Take care, have a good one.